Hi, welcome to Middle Ages Baking with Kaylee. I am going to be baking Middle Ages recipes for you today and speaking about some medieval history facts while I do it. So, today I'm going to be making a rose pudding and a Portuguese sweetbread. We're going to start with the bread because it's going to take a little bit longer to cook because we have to let it sit several times. So, I'm going to just get started at that point. So I'll be talking about bits and pieces of medieval history while I'm preparing my recipes. So stay tuned for some interesting facts while we bake. So first things first, I want to talk a little bit more about the sweetbread before we make the sweetbread. And I'm going to give that some time for my burner to turn on too. Um, so most of the sources I looked at didn't have any recent history about this bread. It was more about the past 200 years with the bread. But luckily, Wikipedia came in handy and I was able to get some good information. So, as you may have guessed from the name of the bread, it is from Portugal. It was in their native language, we call it massa sovada. So, during modern times, this bread is usually eaten during religious events such as Easter and Passover, but it can also be found at special events and occasions such as weddings. The article I read said that this bread may have originated from a well-known Spanish sponge cake known as pao de leo. It was more commonly baked in the Renaissance, but it was also baked during medieval times. So as you may, the ingredients we'll be using for this bread are milk, butter, sugar, salt, unbleached flour, gold instant yeast, lemon zest, 2 large eggs, 1 egg yolk, 1 separate egg white, in addition to that, and vanilla extract. So during the medieval ages, some of these ingredients wouldn't have been easy to come by, especially the ingredients I'll use later in my rose pudding. So a lot of these recipes would have been made more by nobles and noble chefs. So we're going to get started by combining a 1/2 cup milk, 4 parts butter, 1/2 cup sugar, and 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt into the saucepan where we're going to heat them up to melt the butter and get a creamy texture. So first, I'm going to add my 1/2 cup of milk. My 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to then add my sugar and my salt. Correct, yes. I'm going to add my sugar. 1 1/4 tablespoons of salt. This is 1/2, 1 whole, and 1/4. So now, as this begins to melt, I'm just going to start stirring it. That way the sugar doesn't burn and we get a nice creamy texture. We want it to not be so granulated and just gross. We want it to be one nice, consistent, creamy texture. All right. So as that's melting, because it's taking a minute to heat up still, what I'm gonna add, in a separate mixing bowl. This is take 3. I had to rewash one of my other mixing bowls. I've never even used this mixing bowl before. I'm gonna add my flour. I'm going to add a tablespoon of my instant yeast, which is over here. And I'm going to add my lemon zest. I used a whole lemon. I just zested the entire lemon. So hopefully it'll have a nice, strong lemony flavor. So I'm going to first check on this, make sure nothing's burning. Nothing's burning. Gonna stir it real quick. As I'm stirring this, I'm going to grab another spoon and I'm going to just kind of stir my dry ingredients together, get them nice and mixed up. All right. So now my dry ingredients are mixed up. My butter and everything is melted. So next, we are going to take my milk mixture and stir that in. Ooh, my glasses just steamed up. So I'm gonna take this and we're just gonna stir it in nice and slowly. That way we don't make a huge mess. Mix it very low and slow, just kind of trying to get a nice good texture. But nope, we're okay. It's gonna take a minute just because doing it by hand. All right, and now that I've mixed that in quite a bit, we're gonna add our eggs and vanilla. So this is kind of 1.5 eggs, I would say. It's 2 full large eggs and an egg yolk. We're gonna take that, chop it up, mix it in. And we're also going to add a 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay, and now we just mix this in nice and neat. Just gonna, my spatula isn't working, so we're just gonna get in there, mix it. Want everything to stick together and make a nice but sticky dough ball. I'm gonna pause this really quick and I'll be right back when I finish mixing. Thank you. I had to have my mom help me because my hands are covered in dough right now. And as you can see, we're just kind of getting it all mixed and kneaded together. Kind of like pizza dough. Okay. Just trying to get this to a nice consistent texture. It's very much like all over the place. Oh, but I want to do it the right way. Gonna do it the right way. It gives you a whole nother appreciation doing it this way. This is my first time making bread at home. I've made communion bread before, but this is my first time making bread. And it's quite the experience. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. But it's definitely something else. All right. All right. Now that we have this at a good, even, consistent texture, I'm going to place it into a bowl and put a shower cap over it and let it rise. I can find the shower cap. I'm not quite sure where it is right now. We'll figure that out in a second. right, welcome back. So we left off waiting for our Portuguese bread, sweetbread to rise. In the meantime, while we wait, we're going to begin our rose pudding recipe. So I'm extremely excited for this one, if not only for the excuse that I got to buy myself a bouquet of flowers with an excuse that it's for school. So before we start off, I'm going to dive into a little bit of medieval history. Unfortunately, I couldn't find much about this recipe, and so I decided to just kind of look up rose roses in medieval history anyways and see what I found. And so here's a little bit of my deep dive. So when looking up this recipe, I found people mention something called a reed rose recipe. It was REDE. I didn't see anything else about it in particular. Sorry, I'm making sure my water's not boiling over because we're about to get to that. But I didn't see anything about it in particular, which was unfortunate, but I did see that it is a thing and it may or may not have inspired this recipe or may or may not have been this recipe, so we'll see. But so I just kind of looked up roses in medieval history and what the significance was. And so they were very symbolic during this time. They were often seen as a symbol of love, purity, passion, and even blood. Roses were used in a lot of artwork, and they were also shown in house symbols, as we have the famous example of the War of Roses. So what I am going to do is I'm going to keep talking about roses, but my water is starting to boil a lot faster than I thought my water was going to boil. So we're going to start blanching our rose. So I have one, there it is, white rose that I've already kind of washed the petals of. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these petals off and pop them into the water and start blanching them. And as I do this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the War of Roses. So the War of Roses was a civil war fought in the later medieval ages. It's kind of outside of what we've talked about in this part of history, but it is still, according to the interwebs, a part of medieval history, so I decided to bring it up. It was basically a fight for power between two houses, the House of Lancaster and the House of York, which the House of York was symbolized by a white rose, like this one, and the House of Lancaster was founded by a red rose, or symbolized by a red rose. And as a result of this battle, the Tudor household, which is the household of the very infamous, famous in other ways, but infamous for his many wives, Henry VIII, it ended with Elizabeth I, who is also known as the Virgin Queen. But this whole war was was called the War of Roses because the houses were both about roses, which I thought was very interesting and just kind of a fun thing to tie into our baking session. So as you can see, I'm just kind of plucking my petals off because we are going to need it for our rose petal pudding. For this recipe, what I'll be using is one white rose, as you already saw, 4 tablespoons of corn flour, because they would have probably used rice flour because corn wasn't really a thing at this point. But I could not find rice powder because all 4 stores I went to look for it were out. And I had corn flour, so corn flour is. So we also are going to have milk added into this recipe, 3 tablespoons of sugar, which I'm going to move this over here so you're not just staring at my back. 3 tablespoons of sugar. We'll have 3/4 of a tablespoon of ground ginger, 19.4 ounces of light cream, or 575 milliliters, a pinch of salt, the recipe calls for 19 chopped dessert dates. The thing said it came with 20. It came with 15. So we're rolling with what we got. But they're big dates, so it should be fine. We also have we're also going to have 1 tablespoon of chopped pine kernels. So what I'm doing right now is basically blanching these petals. We'll blanch them for a few minutes. It's going to be about 2 minutes of just blanching the petals and kind of getting them to a state where we can put them in our pudding eventually. I'm going to turn this on so I don't set off my smoke alarm. Good heavens, that's loud. But while we blanch those, we're gonna oh wait, no, this is my saucepan. I do kind of need that. So we're gonna wait a minute. Gotta love not knowing where stuff is in your home kitchen because you cook in your apartment kitchen now. So I'm gonna put this on a brief pause and I will be right back when I am done blanching. All right, now that our rose petals are blanched, I am going to, ooh, if I can show this. There we go. Sorry, I was making sure my computer was adjusted correctly. But now that our rose petals are properly blanched, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop them out and put them onto my parchment paper on top of my drying rack. That way they can properly cool, and I will put probably like a bowl of water, or I have a container of some sort of baked goods that my parent bought that's a medium heavy weight. We'll probably just put that on top because it's the same size. But the thing is we want an evenly distributed weight on top of our rose petals. So as you'll see, I'm just gonna kind of scoop them out. Try not to take any water with them. And just kind of place them gently. Parchment paper. These don't actually hold heat that much, I'm noticing, once they're blanched. So you have to pick them off. You should be fine. I don't know why I reached onto a steaming flower petal, but I did, and I'm glad it didn't get burned. But yeah, I'm gonna do this step for the other like 20 rose petals in here. I'm gonna put this on a brief pause again. I'm sorry for all the jumps. I just don't want you to have to sit here in my awkward silence. Okay, so now that our rose petals are blanched and set off to the side, what we're gonna begin doing is just the other work, because obviously this whole pudding might be called rose pudding, but it's, as you know, it's not just roses. So, next things next. Sorry, I'm recording this on Zoom and Zoom's being really weird. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna start by putting the corn flour into our saucepan. We are then going to add the milk while mixing because we want to get a nice creamy texture. I said to use a flat spatula. I will grab it. Favorite pancake spatula. Yep, so we're gonna add our milk in here while we're kind of mixing it in, not ready to get that kind of creamy. That's how it was described to me. It's kind of a creamy texture. Kind of trying to get some corn flour and stuff. That way the whole thing was nice and even. That was a splash. Ooh, it's getting messy. I mean, I was already messy. This thing is. Because next, what we're going to do is we're going to put this over the burner at low heat. To finish mixing while the burner heats up for a moment. It was just on, so it shouldn't be too long. So it's now heating up and put that on down. It takes forever to get if you have it on. Forever and a day. All right. So now I'm going to go grab a whisk. Because what we're going to do is we are going to, I apologize. I apologize for my dogs. They're always loud. They're poodles. They're dumb. But now that we're over low heat, we are going to stir until our mixture kind of thickens a little bit. Great. Let me just double check that I am doing this right. All right, so we are now going to use this whisk now that we're at kind of like a nice thicker cream. I'm probably going to give it another minute just because it's not thickening up that much. And from what I read, it's supposed to thicken a little more. Okay, let's see if this starts to thicken. It's getting a little thicker. I'd rather it be just like a little bit thicker, a little less watery before I fully commit to putting my sugar and stuff in because it did say it's supposed to. It did say it's supposed to thicken. Yes. So now that we're kind of waiting for this mixture to thicken, I do apologize if you hear my mother in the background. Having a family thing at the moment. I don't know what it is, and I don't care to find out at the moment. I love them, but I'm sure it's something dumb. Okay, we're getting there. Definitely starting to see the more like thicker texture. Pull up. Give me a moment. I'm gonna go to my mom recording so she'll talk in her room. Okay, back to that. It's taking a minute to thicken up. Maybe I blended it a little too well. Who knows? So my oven's taking forever to heat up. I have an electric oven here. Definitely not very medieval of me. I appreciate them for going through the struggle so I don't have to. Okay, I'm gonna give it a few minutes to kind of thicken up a little more. I will press play when I start adding the sugar in. So now I'm gonna resume getting my mixture together. Now that my milk is thickening, I took that time just to chop up my dates because my grocery store didn't have chopped dates, and so I found whole dates, which if it was nearly that easy to find a whole date, I wouldn't be single by now. But so now we are going to add our sugar. We're gonna whisk in our sugar. We are going, oh my goodness, my cinnamon. All right, we're going to add our spices, and in this case, I am adding my cinnamon because I love cinnamon, and they didn't have that during medieval times. Now, dates and cinnamon and ginger and all that fun stuff would not have been easy to come by, and so once again, this is where you would have had to have had medieval money in order to actually have these things and be able to make this pudding. So you would have either been a noble or a chef of a noble. But yeah, so we're gonna add our sugar. Gonna add my ginger. Going to grab my cinnamon. I did not pre-measure my cinnamon. That was a dumb idea, but we'll probably get, hold on, I gotta add a little bit more of my ginger. Uh-oh. Apparently I make the mess, but I'm gonna add just kind of cinnamon as I see fit because of how strong cinnamon is. It's about to be the season for cinnamon though, so gotta get our taste buds ready. Just gonna add in some cinnamon, not too much because we don't want it to overpower everything else. We're gonna whisk that really good. Get that all mixed together. Now I'm going to grab our rose petals, which should be completely dry after being blanched. I'm going to just drop these in. They're sticking to the parchment paper. Right, now I'm going to start whisking in my rose petals. Try to break those up so that way it's one consistency. Okay, sweet. Sorry, I'm just double checking that I do this right. My ADHD, or not my ADHD, my insomnia meds, which are also the same thing as ADHD meds, are wearing off at this moment. So focusing is not easy. So now that that's one consistency, what we're going to do is we are also going to blend in our cream and our salt. So I'm going to take this. This is our light cream. Which for some reason I could only find in canned form, so that's fun. And now that that's mixed in, we're going to add our salt, which is stuff. There we go. Add our salt. Hopefully my fingers aren't too sticky because I was just cutting up dates. Yeah, I don't know if dates are out of season. I'm not really sure what date season is, but there were not enough dates in my grocery store. There was the one thing left. I guess I found the one. Perfect. All right. So next thing's next. We are going to turn this into the other saucepan. And we're going to stir once again over. Oh, it's already stirred at that heat. It's at the. Oh, I don't have to turn it over. Look at me. Okay. So yeah, we're going to turn it. I will turn it over anyways because I'm going to follow the recipe like a good kid. Um, and I will be right back. The handle broke off my other. The handle broke off my other saucepan, so we're just going to stick with this one. Okay. All right. So now that it's heated with all these ingredients added, it's been heated for a few minutes. We're at a pretty heavy whipping cream kind of consistency. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stir in, this is about a little under a tablespoon of the pine nuts, and then I would say about 12 chopped dates worth, just because I had to chop them all myself. I did a good job. I'm so proud of myself. But yeah, that's what this is. We're going to just kind of plunk it in. I don't like that word. If they'll come out of the bowl, it's okay. You were chopped for a reason. You're going to taste delicious. All right. So I'm going to stir those in there while we're on a low heat. I'm going to turn this heat a little lower just because I had to turn it up for a minute there because my stove was being weird. Yeah, so we're going to just keep stirring this for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to turn this over into a bowl. I'll be right back. Okay, so the reason you can't hear me here is because my audio corrupted. I don't know how that happened. God bless my microphone. So what's going on right now is, as you can see, I'm taking my 9-inch pan, I'm greasing it with my olive oil, and I am getting my dough out of the bowl. The recipe said to kind of try to get the air out gently, so that's what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of squeezing it out, trying to get it out in the gentlest way possible. I'm sitting here squeezing it. My back is turned for some reason. I'm a moron. And so I'm sitting there squeezing it out, and part of it fell off at this point, and I also found a date in it. I think I was just frazzled because I had to remake it. And so, yeah, this is me trying to kind of get it in the bowl all together in one piece. It's me grabbing the little piece that fell and telling you that I'm grabbing the little piece that fell off. And I'm just kind of getting it into the pans, making sure it's stuck to the bottom, but not too stuck. And I'm apparently grabbing more of it that fell. Okay. But yeah, and then eventually in the next few minutes, you'll see me show you the pan. That's me just saying, you see it's a little ball of the pan. We're gonna put the shower cap back on top of it and wait for it to rise. All right, so now I'm showing you that my dough has risen. It's been an hour and 45 minutes at this point. I left it just in the kitchen, sitting there with the shower cap on top of it. And so now what I'm doing is I'm taking the egg white that we used from our egg earlier, the one that we used just the yolk of earlier, and I'm spreading it around evenly on that bread to give it a nice golden crust. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my hand and I'm just kind of spreading it, trying to make sure I get it in all the creases and folds, so that way it's got a nice even layer as I'm showing you. I thought I tilted that more, that was my bad. But now I'm putting it in the oven. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees. That's what I'm explaining. So my oven's at 350 degrees. I'm gonna bake it for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna take it out, put an aluminum foil tent on it, and then bake it for another 35 minutes, it ended up being. And so I'm showing you how excited I am that I can't wait to see the product. All right, so while I have the bread in the oven baking, I'm going to garnish our pudding with a little bit of dates and some diced pine nuts. Give it a fun little look. I don't know how worried they were about garnishing in medieval times, but I'm worried about it. All right, and this right here is the finished product of our pudding. I will be videoing shortly after the bread comes out, the reactions to it baking. Okay, so of course my computer dies the minute my bread's supposed to come out of the oven, but we're gonna pull it out and take a peek. I don't have a very good grip on it, but ta-da! I'm trying not to burn myself. And here it is. It looks good. I can't wait to try it. All right, so I'm here with my parents. This is my mom, Dawn. This is my dad, Greg. They are my unwilling participants because I dragged them into this at 9 o'clock at night. So they are going to try I didn't even tell y'all what I was making. Y'all are going to try my rose pudding with dates and pine nuts and my Portuguese sweetbread. Okay. And you're just going to tell me what you think of it, if you would eat it any day, like on a day-to-day basis, or if it's like going in the garbage after this, or just what you think of it in general, like what it tastes like.
Did I say affect you, Greg?
I hope not. I think it's good. Yeah. I tried it before.
That's really good. I'm surprised.
They act like I don't bake.
I didn't think I was gonna like this.
Did you try the bread yet?
No, but I love bread.
I know you do. That's why I'm most nervous about this part. You don't eat pudding that often. You eat bread a lot. That's all I've smelled for the past 4 hours. Is it? Okay. I'm really excited. Great, because we have 2 of them because I messed up twice.
This I would eat on a regular basis. I like that, but I wouldn't eat it all the time because I'm not a big pudding person.
Okay.
But it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, the bread tastes like a Hawaiian roll, and the pudding tastes more like a raisin bread pudding.
Mm-hmm.
But both good.
Sweet. All right. Now you got to finish your plates so I can get an A. It's part of the grade.
Probably might have to be a plate in a minute.